Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar.
But Kendrick.
Kendrick.
Kendrick got the edge, bro. Cause Kendrick motherfucking Lamar, love y'all.
Kendrick Lamar is arguably noted as one of, if not the best writers in mainstream hip-hop. Notoriously known for having the best album of all time and also having won a Pulitzer Award, he definitely has his accolades. But how good is his writing? No, actually, because no one has ever taken a deep dive into it. Well, today I'm going to be going through each one of his albums and picking one or two of his most technical songs and explaining the meaning behind a lot of his writing and work, as well as giving away writing and production techniques he uses to enhance his music. Starting off with Section 80. This is the insane writing behind Kendrick Lamar. Section 80 is widely regarded as Kendrick's first album. I know there are a bunch of people online that say it's a mixtape, but even Kendrick himself said it was an album. This album is called Section 80 because it represents the crack cocaine epidemic in the 1980s, while also referencing Section 8, a low-income government housing neighborhood. This album tackles things like political issues during Ronald Reagan's terms, as well as Kendrick's generation's problem with hedonism and substances and many other topics. Although you could see Kendrick's vision ended up taking him in terms of musical direction, I think that this album comes off as less introspective and more preachy from time to time. But nevertheless, the song I'm choosing off of this album is gonna be Hole Up. This is because it showcases the direction Kendrick decided to take as a writer, since on this record he was able to be introspective while still making a decent chorus and listening experience. And when I say this, I mean he was able to use repetition at an attempt to make a catchy song while still having meaning. And although this is actually one of the few songs on the album I don't like just because of the production and delivery, it doesn't only talk about his increased confidence due to his new presence in rap and wanting to indulge in a lot of the wrong things, but it also has a line that I found confusing, stating, "I never did anything but break the ground on top of the asphalt." And when I first saw this, I thought he was referencing breaking through the traditional path of a backpack rapper in the industry, because the ground on top of asphalt is usually added to make roads, right? Well, apparently not. I found this Reddit post that actually summed it up pretty well with a breakdown of what it actually means. And it goes, he might be alluding to The Rose That Grew From Concrete by Tupac, saying that he broke the ground and made a crack in the pavement to allow the roses to grow. Or in other terms, paved the way for other young men in his situation to break free from their situations. As for the asphalt part, asphalt is technically a thin layer of concrete, and concrete is basically described as an aggregate and binder which solidifies after curing. Maybe he's saying he broke through the hard outer surface of the concrete, the hard outer shell of young men like him, to allow for the thin and weaker layer, or the more vulnerable side of young men like him, to show and thrive. As for the other part, maybe he's saying he's so far ahead of everyone else, all you see is the tire mark as he is moving with the speed of a lightning bolt. And this also makes a lot of sense, as Tupac is one of Kendrick's biggest inspirations for poetry, and we continue to see this through his future albums that we're gonna cover. I mean, this gives Kendrick's writing a much deeper meaning than I initially thought, but this writing is nowhere near the level of writing we see on his next album, Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. Good Kid, M.A.A.d City is an amazing album. It went extremely mainstream with multiple songs hitting billions of streams, like Money Trees and Swimming Pools. I think the album title is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, he's a good kid in a mad city. But there's actually another meaning behind the title. If you ever noticed, mad is spelled with 2 A's in the title. And unless you're a f***ing idiot, you'd know that it should only be 1 A. But that's actually because it's an acronym for My Angry Adolescents Divided and My Angels on Angel Dust. And he was actually laced with angel dust, as he goes on to explain in one of his songs on this album. This album talks about navigating gang violence, peer pressure, and temptation while trying to maintain his morality. I decided to choose Swimming Pools as my first pick, and although it's nowhere near as deep as a bunch of other cuts on this record, it's by far the best combination of catchiness, mixed in with a message, and a melody that paints the picture of the song perfectly. It goes on to talk about peer pressure and substance abuse, but is disguised as a drinking anthem. This is a perfect hit song in my opinion, purely based off of the message and catchiness of it, and it's the fact that every party I've been to where people do play this song, they go crazy, which makes the message behind the song even deeper. It's honestly amazing. He was able to use hazy production and vocal effects to emulate what it feels like to be drunk, while having a very fast-paced verse portraying overthinking and anxiety when doing these bad habits. And for my second pick, I chose Sing About Me I'm Dying of Thirst. purely because this song is storytelling perfection, fit into 12 minutes and 3 seconds. Every verse takes on a different perspective of someone in Kendrick's life. Many people think that Kendrick is talking to himself in the third person during the first verse, but he's actually talking from his friend's perspective. And the reason the first verse gets cut off early by gunshots is to represent the lives of people around him getting cut off early due to gang violence.
And if I die before your album drop, I hope.
The second verse takes on the perspective of a girl whose sister died at an early age while being a prostitute. Her name is Keisha, a girl whose story was told back in section 80, and this is actually a lyric that he states in the song from her perspective, saying, "You wrote a song about my sister on your tape and called it section 80. And although he tackles morality on other songs like Real on this album, he has some lyrics from the perspective of this girl showing that she's not only sleeping with her dead sister's man, but is also willing to give up her dignity for $40. The third verse of the beat is Kendrick's own perspective. He contemplates death and hopes he'll be able to make it to heaven. He wonders if he's exploiting the people around him for lyrics and music, and then the verse comes to an end. Then the beat switches with an audio clip of a group of guys talking, saying that they should go back to what sounds like a fight or an altercation that's happening.
Nigga, like we right here, nigga, brother, nigga, they just killed the only brother, my nigga. We right here on the block, my nigga. Alright, nigga, just come. Alright, just call me back. Call me back.
And then the beat switch is a very angelic choir loop, which might be signifying that death is near. Kendrick goes on to then spit 5 verses talking about his desperate search for spiritual redemption, and at the end of the song there's also a lady praying, saying that they need to get baptized and that they're dying of thirst.
Why are you so angry? See, you young men are dying of thirst. Do you know what that means? That means you need water, holy water.
Which gives the song a whole new meaning, since the chorus that goes, "Promise that you'll sing about me," is clearly about remembering his city of Compton. So he might be saying that his city is dying of thirst, or missing God and the presence of religion and authority. I don't know if this is a coincidence, but the BPM of this song is 111, which is crazy, because those are angel numbers and there are many mentions of death, religion, and the afterlife throughout the entire song. The album ends pretty shortly after, with only 2 more songs being Real and Compton. And I remember how I told you guys the writing of section 80 didn't compared to Good Kid, M.A.A.d City. Well, get ready for To Pimp a Butterfly.
All's my life I has to fight.
To Pimp a Butterfly is claimed to be the best album of all time, according to many of the biggest music forums, as well as some of the biggest music critics like Fantano. Yes, you heard me. Not the best rap or hip hop album, the best album. This album was originally meant to be called To Pimp a Caterpillar, because then the acronym would sound out Tupac.
Yeah, To Pimp a Caterpillar, that was an original name, and they called it because the abbreviation was Tupac, 2PAC.
But he ended up going with the name To Pimp a Butterfly, because once you evolve and flourish as a person, whether that's becoming extremely rich or famous, then everyone wants to pimp you out and exploit you for their own good, while being oblivious to the struggles they may cause you. The album starts off with an interesting sample on the intro track Wesley's Theory, and this song sets the tone for the album with very unique production and lyrics, with lyrics like "I can see the baller in you" and "I can see the dollar in you," as well as other bars like "Get it all, you deserve it, Kendrick," encouraging Kendrick or any talented artist to spend beyond their means, because then the people in control are the ones who benefit off of it. And he says many of these things in the perspective of Uncle Sam, and if you don't know who Uncle Sam is, he is the personification of the US government. He's the fictional character that collects your taxes and represents this country. Kendrick later goes on to say that he didn't even pass economics in high school, showing that the system doesn't care about your level of awareness, because as long as you have a spark or talent that they can benefit off of, even if it's for a single second, they don't care. They'll pimp you like a butterfly. And they also don't care about how long you're gonna end up lasting, as seen with somebody like Wesley Snipes, who's mentioned countless times throughout the song, a guy whose career got ruined because of taxes and lack of financial literacy. This intro track is genuinely amazing. Like, it's honestly crazy how good it is. And if I were to continue to go through this entire album song by song, then this video would be 5 hours long. And that's exactly why I'm choosing 3 songs for this album. The songs I'm gonna be choosing off this album are You, For Sale Interlude, and Mortal Man. Starting off, we're gonna take a look at You, which is clearly a track where Kendrick reflects on himself while expressing survivor's guilt and many other emotions. At the start of the song, we can see him constantly repeating the phrase, "Loving you is complicated."
Loving you is complicated.
And then going on to mention how he sees himself. And it almost seems like he has this immense hatred towards himself that comes from a lack of confidence. He thought he was gonna be so much more than he is, and also thinks of himself as less. The beat then switches and it gets even darker with bars like, "Are you the reason why mama and them leaving?"
Are you the reason why mama and them leaving?
As he continues to scold and shame himself countless times by thinking he's the reason that no one from Compton was able to make it out with him, because he didn't help them. You know, people think that writing is purely about lyricism, but it's about placement and delivery. Throughout this whole song, Kendrick seems to keep getting more and more depressed as he notices his faults, with him in the second beat clearly being intoxicated with alcohol as we hear him drinking throughout the song and the bottles clanking at the end.
And if this bottle could talk.
This shows how his mental health seems to deteriorate over time because he keeps blaming himself over things that he simply has no control over. And this makes sense. You know, if I make it out and all my childhood best friends are in poverty, although I have no control over their success, I'm still gonna feel like shit. It's just a fact. And this is clearly something that Kendrick has experienced. For the next song, For Sale Interlude, I decided to choose this because of his personification of the devil. Everyone knows that another name for Satan or the devil is Lucifer. And throughout the song, Kendrick is talking to a woman named Lucy, mentioning multiple times that Lucy wants him to play. And that Lucy, or the devil, will give you everything as long as you give her your trust and loyalty. The reason why this song is so hard hitting is because, contrary to popular belief, the devil is not an evil entity that's easy to spot. It's not a red guy running across the street causing havoc. And we can see Kendrick representing this by humanizing a demonic entity like Lucifer that appears to only want the best for him. This includes disguising fun as drinking, smoking, and giving in to temptations. I mean, even within the music industry, it's easy to just promote degeneracy and have all your lyrics be about drinking lean and popping perks. In Kendrick's case, this also includes just enjoying the party lifestyle without attempting to have a positive impact on the world. You know, my mom always used to tell me that the devil comes disguised as an angel. And not only is that extremely true, as we can see with this song, but people don't understand that selling your soul to the devil doesn't mean going to the bathroom and signing a contract in blood. It's not as simple as that. Selling your soul is giving up your morality for materialistic and short-term benefits. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I don't drink alcohol, and I really don't want to, but I really want to hang out with a certain group of people who do. If I drink just to fit in with them, not only am I giving up my morality and selling my soul, but later down the road I'm gonna come to a harsh realization that they weren't even friends with me because of my personality. We bonded over a substance, and that was alcohol. What Kendrick is trying to say in this interlude is, are you willing to give up your morals to make it to the top, or are you gonna stay loyal to God and attempt to achieve your success that way? And that's kind of the reason I picked this track. For the last track of this album, I decided to go with Mortal Man. Mortal Man is a 12-minute track, but only 5 of those minutes is an actual song, with the chorus saying, "When shit hits the fan, are you still a fan?" signifying that people only love you when you're unproblematic. Think about it. How many people in your life are gonna show you unconditional love? Likely none. I mean, if you go to prison, then most people you know are already gonna cut you off. He even gives us an example with Michael Jackson and mentions how everyone loved his art until he was accused of touching kids. And this is the beauty of Kendrick's writing. He's able to display a message while still being able to have a catchy chorus and hook and deliver with examples, all while not sounding too preachy or corny. Now remember how I said that only 5 minutes of this 12-minute song is actually music? For the last 7 minutes, Kendrick decided to emulate and stitch together an interview between him and Tupac Shakur.
What you mean by that? What the ground represent?
The ground is gonna open up and swallow the evil.
Throughout this interview, Kendrick is getting to ask all the questions he wished he could, since he never got to meet Tupac, who was one of his idols. Tupac tells Kendrick that any young man should fight for what they believe in while they're still young, and Kendrick acknowledges it and later states that music is the only thing we have left to try and make an impact on the world. Kendrick goes on to tell the story of a caterpillar in a mad city that exploits the system and then goes on to institutionalize himself in a cocoon. And while he's trapped in those walls, he comes up with ideas to bring back to his mad city. And it's really just Kendrick explaining the concept of this album through poetry and very, very good storytelling. And then after he's done talking about the story of a caterpillar, the album just ends abruptly with no response from Tupac. I mean, holy shit. This album actually took me so long to go through and dissect. I mean, let's not lie, it's extremely well written and definitely deserves its praise. But it clearly didn't get praised enough by the masses, because next up we're gonna be looking at Kendrick's biggest commercial release, and it's his album, Damn. I'm sure we've all seen this album cover, because this album is Kendrick Lamar's biggest release, and it was pretty obvious that he was trying to get more public appeal as an artist. I would consider this album made for the radio alongside his most recent one, GNX, since it gave us hits like Humble, Pride, DNA, and Love. but all of its commercial success definitely does not take away from his extraordinary writing abilities. With him being able to tell the story of how his dad literally escaped death because of his kindness on the song Duckworth, which is one of the songs I picked alongside Pride to break down. I'm gonna be honest, it was between Pride, Lust, and Fear for the second pick, but Pride just took the cake for how he was able to manipulate his voice in order to add more meaning and substance to the track. Pride is a track I picked since it has a lot to unpack, as throughout the song he constantly talks about self-reflection and how in a perfect world he would choose faith over riches. But being able to acknowledge that he isn't perfect instead of trying to be perfect is exactly why he's able to move on. During every bridge he also groans, saying he wasn't taught to share but care, in a very hazy tone with a bunch of vocal effects, and because of these effects, we're able to put ourselves in the mind of a very self-conscious Kendrick Lamar. And this Reddit post I found sums up the meaning of the song perfectly. Kendrick's first hook says, in a perfect world he would be happy, and he was there in another life. In the first verse, he goes back and forth about how the world caused him to be evil, but he also makes points that would indicate that he's inherently evil. On the second hook, he says that maybe he wasn't there. He then addresses his own issues and why he's part of the reason the world isn't perfect. In the first verse, his vocals go up and down because with an ego, his mood and feelings fluctuate so much. But in the second verse, he's low the whole time because once your ego dies, you're constantly sad. That is crazy. Now you see why I chose this track. Everything he does on this track seems so intentional, it's crazy. Now on to the next track, Duckworth. Duckworth is the second track I picked and also the outro track to the album. And it starts off with him explaining what the life of a gangster looks like in Compton. Don't worry, this relates to the end of the track. The beat changes as he continues to tell the story to help you visualize the scenario of what life in Compton looks like. He introduces his dad as a guy who talked a lot with a curly top and a gap in between his teeth. It makes you feel more empathetic for him. And also notice how when he introduces his dad, he calls him Ducky, which makes him feel more relatable and also doesn't make him seem like he's just Kendrick's dad. Kendrick is so good at humanizing people. A lot of other rappers would just say, my dad was working behind the counter and had a member run up on him. And he goes on to state how his dad noticed that this gang member who entered the store last year shot a customer and robbed the manager. So Duckworth made sure to get on his good side and give him free food before anything bad could happen. He ends the song by stating how crazy it is how the person who was thinking of robbing the store was actually the owner of Top Dog, a record label that Kendrick ended up signing to, and if it weren't for such a coincidence that the owner of Top Dog would have been serving life and Kendrick would have grown up without a father.
And die in a gunfight.
I can talk about this song as much as possible, but this is just one of those songs that you need to listen to in order to fully understand. I can't capture everything it has to offer through just words, but that's what art should be. This album has some well-written tracks, and even the biggest hits of this album like Humble and DNA have a meaning behind them. But Kendrick obviously intended for this to be a commercial release with all the traction he was getting, and to be honest, this propelled him even further. I mean, tell me that 2K18 soundtrack was not this entire album. Anyways, after this album we wouldn't see an album from Kendrick for another 5 years, until Mr. M.A.A.d.
I've been going through something. 1,855 days. I've been going through something.
Kendrick?
Be afraid.
After 5 entire years of being off the grid, Kendrick Lamar decided to drop an album called Mr. M.A.A.d and the Big Steppers. That would clarify why he's been gone for so long and also talks about his self-growth since starting a family while also attempting to break generational trauma with his new family. Personally, I think this album was a great comeback and has a bunch of extremely introspective songs since he now has a new perspective on life as a father. For this album, I decided to pick the intro track United in Grief. I picked United in Grief because it just carries so much weight as a track. There's so much going on and it really feels like you're in Kendrick's mind and living through what he's been thinking for the 5 years he's been gone. With him rapping extremely fast during some parts, showing his anxiety and overthinking / confusion.
The mansion chef for practice, 500 insurance.
And slower parts that really show how he's contemplating certain thoughts or going through more depressing times. This track is also covered with lyricism from head to toe. He mentions leaving while he was at the top of the game, and how he was seriously struggling with lust, financials, guilt, and misdirection. He has bars like, I bought infinity pools I never swam in, and also talks about a lot of guilt he has because he can't help his community. And these are a lot of things that we saw him going through during To Pimp a Butterfly, and although he's overcome many things in his life, there are still things he clearly struggles with 7 years later. But the good thing is that since this album released, he hasn't gone off the grid and has been consistently either featuring with other artists, getting into rap beefs, or actually releasing more albums, which goes into our next album, GNX.
Reincarnated with love. My Gemini twin back power went up. No more handshakes and hugs. The energy only circulate through us.
GNX is his most recent album, and I'm sure we've all probably heard it. Kendrick released this album using the momentum of the beef between him and Drake, and after getting chosen to perform at the 2025 Super Bowl. This album has a bunch of bangers that we've all heard, like TV Off and Luther, but the song I decided to choose off of this album is gonna be The Heart Part 6. This song perfectly encapsulates Kendrick's ability to write with an ear-scratching melodic beat and beautiful, like seriously beautiful storytelling. During the song, he gets nostalgic and tells the story of when he was getting into the music scene by describing the setting of the studio, making it feel like you're there with him. He also shows love to a lot of his inspirations like Absol and obviously Top Dog, the record label he signed to at the start of his career. This song is just an amazing song and easily the best off of GNX. And just like Duckworth, this is a song that you kind of have to listen to. I can't really make you visualize what it's like to be in the studio during Kendrick's come up, you kind of just have to hear it for yourself. And that is the insane writing behind Kendrick Lamar. Wow, my voice just cracked. Really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think in the comments, and also let me know what you want to see next. That video was crazy, in a good way. If you made it this far, I appreciate you, and subscribe!